Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. Joining me in studio today is my guest, Heather Logrippo, owner of Distinctive Homes Magazine and Expose Yourself Public Relations. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Well, thanks for having me, Bob.
So I invited you on the show today to talk about marketing yourself. You know, we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are in real estate or own other businesses, and you're an expert in the field of public relations. Can you tell us a little bit about marketing yourself and little things that people might be able to do to separate themselves from anyone else in their segment?
Well, if you had asked me this maybe a year and a half ago, I'd probably give you the same spiel as every other marketer out there, which is you have to find your target audience, you have to give them a compelling message, and you have to do it frequently. And that is still the case, except now there are tools that marketers can use that are a little different from what we've used in the past. So, for instance, if we're going to talk about real estate, in the past, real estate agents are famous for sending out direct mail pieces. They're famous for putting ads in the paper. Sometimes they'll even get crazy and put an ad on Realtor.com. But there are now tools that you can use that supersede anything you've ever done before. For instance, there are companies that collect data on every single person. When you go online and you look for something, let's say you're on Amazon and you look at a product, and you'll notice that that product now follows you around the internet for months now. That's called retargeting. And that is something now that smaller businesses are able to use to market themselves. So for instance, if you're a real estate agent and you want to market, let's say in the town of Shrewsbury, you can now, using certain data points, find people who are in market, who search for certain terms like, what is my house worth? I need to find a real estate agent, anything that has to do with real estate. And you can now follow those people around the web with targeted ads. So if I'm a real estate agent, I have a client named Lisa Bradley in Shrewsbury. She can follow a consumer around for up to 90 days with ads that say, if you're going to buy or sell, you need to buy or sell with Lisa Bradley. Very powerful because she only works in one town. That's her specialty. And she only has a limited amount of people who are looking to buy or sell. So she's able to find them and target them. And because it's so exact, it's a lot less expensive than paying somebody to design a postcard, than having it printed, than pay for postage. It's more streamlined. So that's
pretty cool. So I think the same thing has happened to me. I didn't realize that's what it was, but like I went to Wayfair because my wife wanted me to look at something online, and then for like the next month, every time I went to my Yahoo email or anything else, I always got the Wayfair ad in the right-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, and that's called retargeting, and that is product-specific retargeting. There's also retargeting that you can do. For instance, if you send an email out to an email list and you want to make sure that the people who got your email continue to see your ads months after they've opened your email, you can retarget people through email, which is really crazy.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, you could also retarget people who just land on certain pages of your site. So for instance, if you're a dentist and somebody lands on a page about dental implants, you can now serve them back ads for the next 90 days wherever they go on the web, talking about you're the best place to get dental implants. So you can do it one of two ways. It either takes a company that has existing good traffic and gives the people who visit that website more impressions over a longer time because you know they already have interest, or you can use the data to find people who don't know about you but are looking for your service and retarget them based on the way they search. So there's different ways you can do it.
Wow.
Yeah. You can even go so far as to, which I love it I do this for the magazine. I get a list of people who are potential advertisers in my magazine, and I target my digital magazine to them specifically based on their street address.
That's impressive.
So you can find out the IP address of that person and serve a certain person that ad. Now it's not a one-to-one. It's usually it's them and three of their neighbors, but
close enough.
It's close enough.
Yeah. That's really cool. So you can get really granular with this whole thing.
You can get as specific and granular as you want. The cost comes in when you get that granular and you're serving ads to very specific interests, you have to make ads that match that interest. So the creative time to create all of these ads takes some time, but once they're created, it's plug and play. It's really quite easy.
Now, I assume somebody's got to be gathering all this data because it comes from everything you do online pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different companies that collect this data. Experian obviously is one of them. And then there are big data companies. This is the way that Trump won the election. Is Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, is a wizard when it comes to this type of marketing, and he really was able to hone in on their weak spots and give certain messages to certain areas of the country. And this is the exact same platform that political campaigns use. So now we can just use it to benefit companies
instead of politicians.
And well, they will use it to benefit themselves too. Yes.
Yeah, that's. I guess that's the downside of the whole
That's
thing, right? Well, that's good to know. So why don't we talk about, too, I know I'm going to jump around on you a little bit
Sure.
here, but Distinctive Homes Magazine.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like everything in this day and age is all electronic. How have you turned Distinctive Homes Magazine into a successful business? Because it is very successful.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I guess it helps to start with my background. I was fortunate enough to help grow a little tiny internet company. When I started in 2000, it was about $1 million company. And when I left 7 years later, it was a $500 million company. And that company was called autotrader.com. I helped build that. And I was in charge of the Northeast sales force. And so when I left, I had some online advertising experience, which was helpful. But I bought a magazine, which was totally counterintuitive to everything that I knew. And I bought a real estate magazine in 2007. So in 2008, when the market crashed, I called the next 3 years my character building years because I wasn't really sure if I was going to be eating ramen noodles for much longer. So but what I did is I took it digital. So we have the hard copy, which I think there's always going to be a place for niche advertising to have magazines. For instance, People Magazine. People love reading People Magazine. People love reading Architectural Digest because it is a niche. Same with Distinctive Homes. It's homes for sale. It's for people in market. It's luxury. People like to look at the pictures and the glossiness of it all. But we took that digital. And so what we did is now we distribute it digitally through some of the tools we talked about earlier, but also through conventional ways, email campaigns and Facebook campaigns and getting it in front of eyeballs. So now the reach, which used to be a 50-mile radius of Boston, because that's where we could sling magazines, is now nationwide. And so you're seeing buyers come from all over the place to buy in Massachusetts because they've seen the magazine online.
Wow. And it's for the most part, it's higher end homes, right?
It is. And we say, 500,000 and above, but actually now 500,000 can be a starter home in some markets, which is like so crazy. So, but mostly our cover properties are, at least a couple $1 million each.
Yeah. And for somebody that's on the real estate side in the way that you are, it's kind of crazy looking at where things were in 2007, 2008, where you couldn't give a house away, to where we are today, where you put a for sale sign up, you got 40 people that want your house. I
have a girlfriend in Shrewsbury who put her house on the market for $240,000, got 14 offers, and sold it for $40,000 over asking price. That's,
all in, I'm guessing, days after it went on the market.
It was within a day.
Within a day.
Within a day.
Yeah. But, and if I had to take a guess, I mean, getting into Shrewsbury at that price point is almost impossible now.
Which is why there's so much competition. But then it creates a problem if you want to move up, because the house you want to move up to is going to be inflated as well. So you really have to think about that.
Right. So I guess if you're downsizing, that's the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Because you're capitalizing on the larger end.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly.
Although, you know what? There's a lot of people going through that same issue because Florida, again, back in 2007, 2008, you could buy pretty much anything you wanted in Florida, and it wasn't it was cheap by our standards. Now that's not the case anymore. Now it's almost like they're catching up to where we are in the Northeast.
For sure. In fact, we were just in South Florida. My father has a restaurant in Hollywood, and we were looking at property down there. What you could get for $250,000 in 2008 is double now.
Wow.
And, not well maintained, not near a beach. I mean, it's just, the waterfront property, forget about it.
I had a friend who bought properties near Disney World. Oh. I forget what town. But he, was those big, huge buildings they put up that they thought were going to sell it immediately, and they were finished right at the real estate bust. I want to say him and his brother, they bought like 3 or 4 of them, and they were paying like $100,000 each for 3-bedroom, 2-bath condos. And I was like, wow, you're insane. You're never going to get that money back. Well, he made that money back several times over.
But isn't it interesting how, because you and I were just talking about the fact that, do you invest in real estate or do you not invest in real estate? And it all depends on the timing.
Yes.
And can you withstand
The ups and the downs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because if you can't and it's too close,
Yes.
don't do it.
Absolutely. If you're over leveraging and you're counting on that $1,300 a month rent on the studio in Worcester, that may not always be the case. Now, that's the tough part of investing in real estate is you don't know when the crashes are coming. You don't know when the end is near. You don't know when the upswing is coming. I mean, there are people right now sitting on the sidelines that are saying, there's no way in heck I'm going to invest money in real estate right now. It's so ridiculously expensive. It's bound to go down. 10 years from now, those prices could have doubled again, and you're still sitting on the sidelines.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think that's what makes you so credible is that being in this business, you have all of the information. Like you've seen the ups, you've seen the downs. And so when you say, you really have to think about it, it's so contrary to all of these. I just got something in the mail the other day from these two HGTV stars that they're doing, you can now flip and flop and invest in real estate, come to our seminar and everything else. Everybody's always talking about how it's so easy to make money in real estate. The reality is you need to have money to make money, and you need to have time to manage your properties unless you have the money to pay somebody to manage them. So you better really figure out if this is for you.
One of the calls that I used to get more frequently, after the bust than today was people calling me up saying, oh, I saw on TV I can buy investment properties with no money down. I can just get a loan. I was like, I still don't know how they're convincing people to buy that program because it doesn't exist. Nobody's going to let you buy a house for $100,000 and take $50,000 cash out at the closing table to buy our next one. Nobody does that.
Well, and not to mention, as a consumer, you need to be suspicious of people who, because they are on TV, that takes a lot of time. So their job is being on TV. It's not actually doing what it is that they're supposed to be doing on TV, number one. Yeah. And number two, and if they were that successful doing what they were doing on TV, they wouldn't have the time to teach you how to do it.
Exactly.
They'd be making more money. So really think that through.
Yes. And there's tons of them, too. It's not like there's just one guy that was saying that. And they're, like you were just saying, they're even doing it today. I mean, I saw, I think it was the Flip or Flop show on HGTV that they're starting their own school now in Boston.
That's the information I got in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, granted, yes, they do it in California, and California is ridiculously tight as far as a real estate market, but you try to go and buy a multifamily or any house anywhere inside 128 right now, you're lucky if it's less than 10 other offers going in with you. It's not the same. And unless you have literally cash in the bank that you can write a check and close in 4 days like they can, you're not getting the house.
Well, and by the way, if you have that much cash in the bank, why are you buying this second house?
Exactly.
Do something else.
Yeah, invest in the stock market.
That's right.
Or buy a business. There's a lot of other things you can do. And I'm not down on real estate. I think real estate is a tremendous investment. But if you're going to invest in real estate to make money and build the assets, you can't just be in it to buy one property because it's never going. All it's going to be for you is a headache and a second job. People don't realize what most tenants are like. When you're renting, you have no responsibility. So when the toilet gets clogged or there's a leaky sink or whatever else happens to be, you're getting that call in the middle of the night to come fix it or pay for somebody else to go fix it.
That's exactly right. I was going to say to you, I hope we're not talking ourselves out of a job. But one thing I would say that would be beneficial, only because I've had experience with it, is maybe second homes. We have a property up in Loon Mountain, and we have a property manager up there because it's 2.5 hours away, and we rent it for the season and make great money on it.
Yes.
And so that's a little different than having a tenant that
you're using rental to pay for you to have a second home, which is an excellent idea. And in having investment properties is not a bad idea. It's just that a lot of people think it's just going to be like a little side gig that takes no time and no money and no effort, and they're just going to make a lot of money. Yeah. And you have to go in with your eyes wide open. You're going to have to buy more than one property, or you're going to have to realize that you're going to be the one managing all these things and dealing with all the headaches. And if that's going to take you away from what makes you your actual primary income, it might not be the best idea.
Well, that's funny. That's what you said your father always told you, right?
After he bought a lot of real estate.
I love it.
So, I guess I had a different experience than a lot of other people. When I was a kid, I spent my summers having to clean out apartments after people trashed them, and I have a different take on owning real estate. But as far as owner-occupied property or second homes, I would wholeheartedly endorse it. The money you're spending on rent, unless you're just out of college and you're thinking about, maybe planting roots somewhere else, then it doesn't make sense to buy if you're going to be moving in a year or two. But if you don't see yourself leaving the area necessarily anytime soon, then buying is a good option.
Yeah, and especially I would say if you could afford it in Boston and you are younger out of college and you can afford to buy a condo, even if it's a little one, start there. Like start with something because it is the best way to build wealth. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I was talking to a customer who bought he calls it a crappy little condo off, I want to say Mass Ave near the Cambridge line in Boston. And he said when I say view, no view, he's like, you don't see anything besides the brick wall next to you. It's like it's an apartment behind another building, so you have an alley view. That's it. It's a studio. He said if you were generous with your measurements, maybe 300 square feet, it's renting out for $2,000 a month. And he paid like $120,000 for it when he bought it.
So there you go.
Yeah. So there are good stories that revolve around investment properties, but those stories are the buy and hold. You're not going to buy it today and make a fortune tomorrow.
Well, and ironically, for as many success stories as we hear about people getting rich in real estate, I don't really hear those stories about people losing everything, and that happens more often than not. I mean, in 2008, I can't tell you how many people, Las Vegas, Florida, just underwater lost their shirts
because it was all speculative buys.
Yep.
You can't the fundamentals have to be there. Buying in Worcester right now is smart because if you look at buying a multifamily in Boston, it's ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about $800,000 to $1.5 million, depending where you're going to buy. The rents that you'd have to support that are just pretty impossible to get, even by Boston standards. But you look at Worcester, and you've got all the schools there. You've got UMass Medical there. There's a lot of positives that are going to keep rents on the upper end of things for a long time because Worcester is a city that's being revitalized.
Well, and the other thing I think we're going to see happening is because it's getting more expensive closer to Boston, people are going to start moving west naturally anyway because it's more affordable. So
it's what's happening already. I mean, there's people with $600,000-$700,000 to buy a house, and they would literally have to buy practically a closet in Boston. I mean, $600,000 to $700,000 buys you a nice house in most places, as long as you're outside 128. Inside 128 gets kind of tough, but.
That's why we ended up, we came from the North Shore and we found a house in Shrewsbury that had acreage, which you can't get, close to Boston, and space.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, believe it or not, Heather, we're already out of time. I see the time flies by.
When you're having fun.
I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to have anybody that's listening right now that's looking to get involved with Distinctive Homes Magazine or looking for somebody to help them out with public relations at Expose Yourself Public Relations, you should get in touch with Heather Logrippo. What's your web address?
It is www.exposeyourselfpr.com. Don't forget the PR or you could end up somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a good note. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Heather.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.